Here are the top stories for today, July 4, 2022. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. assures government workers as partners in governance and would work with them for the benefit of the Filipinos. Vice President Sara Duterte opens more satellite offices in the provinces to ensure that basic social services will reach even those who are living in remote areas. The Department of Education is hoping that more farm schools will be put up in a bid to help in boosting the agriculture sector in the country. And communist terrorist groups in northern Mindanao have decreased with the help of the government's whole-of-nation approach against insurgency. First in the news, government workers should expect changes in leadership style under the new administration. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., however, guaranteed that he would work with them as partners in governance. During his speech at his first flag-raising ceremony this morning as the country's chief executive, Marcos said he recognized government workers for upholding public interest over personal interest. He also reiterated a call for unity in helping him address the problems of the country. In a palace press briefing, Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles said Marcos has been settling in well for 4 days since he was sworn in as the country's 17th president. The Office of Vice President Sara Duterte has opened satellite offices all over the country to help people outside Metro Manila. Vice Presidential spokesperson and lawyer Reynold Munsayak said the OVP satellite offices were opened in the cities of Dagupan, Cebu, Tacloban, Zamboanga, Davao, and Tandag in Surigao del Sur. The satellite offices were launched on July 1, the first day of Vice President Duterte's term. These offices are open to the public during office hours from Monday to Friday and are expected to provide easier access to social services for those who are living in remote areas. The satellite offices were not set up per region but were handpicked strategically for their location. Appointed managers per OVP satellite offices are Michael Angelo Soto Saavedra for Zamboanga, Maria Constancia Coromina Slim for Cebu, Regina Generos Texon for Davao, Alan Tanhuaquio for Tacloban, Rolmar Basalan for Surigao, and Mark Brian Lim for Dagupan. The Philippine National Police has started laying out security preparations for the first State of the Nation address, or SONA, of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. PNP Director for Operations Major General Valeriano De Leon said they are preparing as early as possible so that they could come up with the best security measures for the SONA. He said the PNP wants to come up with a good template and a good security plan and would bank on past SONAs to ensure that there will be no security glitches. He also said that protesters who are expected to come up during the event can occupy the Freedom Parks for their programs. Gun ban violators may soon face perpetual disqualification from owning firearms. PNP Director for Operations Major General Valeriano De Leon said they are considering the stiffer punishment for violators of gun control laws. De Leon explained that the PNP has been announcing any gun ban implementation very early. As such, all licensed firearms holders are expected to be responsible enough to follow rules and regulations. De Leon said violators should be ready to face the consequences and there should be no excuses if they are caught. The construction of a 2,500-hectare international airport in Bulacan, Bulacan will proceed even after President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. vetoed a measure establishing an adjacent Special Economic Zone and Freeport. Press Secretary Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles explains the construction of the new Manila International Airport, also known as Bulacan International Airport, will push through because Congress has granted San Miguel Corporation a franchise for the construction. She says Marcos fully supports the creation of the Bulacan Airport City Special Economic Zone and Freeport Authority, but his decision to veto House Bill 7575 was meant to cure the defects found in the measure. In his two-page veto message, Marcos said the bill lacks coherence with existing laws, rules, and regulations, noting that it has no provisions for audit procedures for expropriation of lands awarded to agrarian reform beneficiaries. It also lacks a master plan for the specific boundaries of the economic zone. Lawmakers are finding ways to refile House Bill 7575, or the bill that sought to establish the Bulacan Airport City Special Economic Zone and Freeport Authority. Senator Joel Villanueva, who hails from Bocawit Town and is the author of the Senate counterpart measure, said that while he respects President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos' decision, he said it is unfortunate as it had the potential to create jobs. Villanueva said he is still looking forward to working with the new administration and pushing for legislation and policies in harmony with the priorities of the executive. Meanwhile, Senator Amy Marcos said she was also disappointed that the Bulacan Eco Zone bill was canceled, but recognizes the president's prerogative to veto any measure. She said the new economic team should stake a clear policy on the creation of new eco zones, which are not prohibited under the corporate recovery and tax incentives for enterprises or create law. She also urges the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council to convene at the earliest opportunity for proper guidance. Still ahead, U.S. President Joe Biden invites President Marcos to visit Washington. And Comelec calls on voters to register early for the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections. We'll be back after a quick break. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will have full diplomatic immunity as head of state when he visits the United States. Despite a long-standing contempt order that had prevented him from entering the U.S., Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, said there will be no problem at all should Marcos heed to the invitation of U.S. President Joe Biden for his visit there. Romualdez said U.S. Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff handed Marcos the personal letter from Biden. He said the U.S. is very much on the radar and is very eager to have President Marcos come. It was also suggested that Marcos would travel to the ASEAN countries, which is also a part of the country's diplomatic efforts to introduce him formally to many of his important allies. Romualdez said the president will focus on talking about the future instead of the past. Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte will also be going to the U.S. ahead of the United Nations General Assembly on September 20. The Department of Education in Antique has expressed hope that President Bongbong Marcos would support the farm school in the province and other parts of the country. Deped Antique Superintendent Felisa Berriong said these farm schools serve as good training grounds for new farmers. Berriong said she was elated to know that he expressed his intention to temporarily head the Department of Agriculture. Antique has a farm school in Barangay Aningalan, San Remigio, which opened on September 13, 2021, but there are plans to also open other farm schools in other municipalities. Students, mostly consisting of children of farmers in the upland barangays, learn how to cultivate rice and other crops as well as entrepreneurship to be able to market their products. Learners will also be taught new farming technologies and how to cultivate organic, high-value crops. Another voting opportunity for Filipinos has come along as the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, confirms the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan polls on December 5 and now urges eligible Filipinos to register beginning today. In an advisory posted on its Facebook page, the COMELEC said the Office of the Election Officer in their respective vicinities is now ready to accept applications for registration until July 23 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The COMELEC will also accept applications for transfer, change and correction of entries in the registration records, reinstatement of name on the list of voters, and transfer of records from a foreign post to a local one. On the other hand, Filipinos filing for reactivation of their registration records are advised to send their applications to the official email address of the OEO in their locality. Earlier, the COMELEC projected that the total number of registered voters for the barangay post will be 66,053,357, while SK voters are expected to reach the total of 23,059,227 after the end of the registration period. The Port Management Office of the Philippine Ports Authority in Surigao City has lauded its personnel for showing honesty by returning a sling bag containing 200,000 pesos in cash. The PMO Surigao identified the security screener as Christopher Montera from the passenger terminal building of the Port of Surigao. Montera was on duty on Friday when he found the sling bag belonging to Ranilo Supremo, a passenger bound for Albor in Libpo, Dinagat Islands. The sling bag was left at the baggage X-ray machine conveyor at the passenger terminal building. The sling bag and the cash were properly returned to Supremo after verification. In a separate statement, the PPA lauded the good deed and honesty of Montera, describing him as an honest security personnel. Despite the pandemic, the country's manufacturing conditions remain strong and progressive for 5 consecutive months this year. S&P Global Philippines Manufacturing said the country's domestic manufacturing sector has sustained growth since January and have recorded a Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, score of 53.8 in June amid the rise in output due to strong demands. PMI above 50 reflects an improvement in manufacturing conditions, while scores below the average means a decline in the operations. Although lower than the 54.1 score last May, S&P Global explained that June still reflected solid growth in its manufacturing performance as the country is still regaining from the 2-year pandemic. Employment levels also rose last month due to the greater production requirements and higher demand for new orders to Philippine-based factories. However, export volumes to foreign markets contracted again in June after being contracted 3 months ago on account of weak international client demand and supply issues. It also reported that the output expectation of manufacturers went the lowest last month since April 2020 as inflationary pressures imposed great challenge to production. More stories from the newsroom. Commuters in Baguio City continued to ride PUVs for free until July 15. And Sagada in Mountain Province reopens its natural caves to tourists. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom. Commuters in Baguio City can still ride public utility vehicles for free after the Libreng Sakay program was extended. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB Cordillera Region, said the Libreng Sakay program will continue until July 15. Those operating under both the gross service contracting or the Libreng Sakay and those operating under the net service contracting are affected by the extension. A total of 1,951 units have joined the Service Contracting Program, or SCP Phase 3 in Cordillera Region. Meanwhile, almost 6.2 million riders availed of free rides as the Libreng Sakay in Davao Region ended last June 30. About 46 transport companies partnered with the LTFRB Region 11, which received 270 million pesos for the third and last phase of Libreng Sakay. The agency said it was fortunate to receive a big portion of the 7 billion peso total funding for the SCP, which enables them to offer more drivers and operators the opportunity to earn. Heads up, Camigueños. There is a temporary ban on pork meat and its byproducts in the province of Camiguin because of the confirmed cases of African swine fever, or ASF, confirmed by the Department of Agriculture, Northern Mindanao. Governor Xavier Jesus Romualdo urged the hog farmers to stop feeding hog scraps to the animals, to take the necessary biosecurity precautions to mitigate the spread of the said disease. The Meat Inspection Code of the Philippines, as amended by RA number 10536, the public is advised that the slaughter of pigs outside of the municipal slaughterhouses is a criminal offense punished under Republic Act 9296. 14 swine deaths were tallied in Pandan, Mambajao, and 18 positive results of ASF were recorded on June 30. This resulted in a decision from the Provincial Veterinary Office, or PVO, to conduct an initial outbreak investigation on June 22. Romualdo urged the hog raisers with no confirmed ASF cases to insure their livestock from the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation. Communist terrorist groups have declined in number in northern Mindanao as the military and government agencies credit the continued implementation of the whole-of-nation approach against insurgency. Vincent Bautista has the story.
The communist terrorist group in northern Mindanao had decreased its number as the 4th Infantry Battalion, together with other government agencies, strengthens the implementation of EO-70, or the whole-of-nation approach to end local communist armed conflict.
At the start of the implementation of Executive Order 70, diri sa Northern Mindanao, naatay 12 kabuok nga organisasyon nila, armed groups or armed guerrilla fronts na armas. At this moment, 2022, tulo na lang ka grupo o tulo na lang ka guerrilla fronts ang nahibilin nga padayon natong neutralize or address or assist.
Aside from the decreased number of guerrilla groups, Major General Mamawag also shared that almost 3,000 rebel members had surrendered and availed of the Balik Loob program, where each surrenderee received financial assistance, livelihood programs, and other various programs offered by different government agencies. With the continued implementation of ELCAC activities, Mamawag expressed that they want to resolve the armed conflict via a peaceful means and urges the remaining rebel members to surrender and avail the programs offered by the government. For PNA Newsroom, Vince Bautista, Philippine Information Agency, Misamis Oriental.
The city government of Zamboanga has stopped requiring permits for public and private gatherings. The city decided to forego permits for gatherings following a meeting with Mayor John Deped and the National Interagency Task Force. Zamboanga City will remain under Alert Level 1 until July 15. Travelers are still required to submit a negative swab result. Strict enforcement of minimum health standards such as wearing of face masks and hand hygiene likewise stays. Meanwhile, Sagada in Mountain Province has reopened its natural caves to visitors, particularly revenge tourists or travelers whose trips have been held back by lockdowns. For now, only the Sumaging Cave, Lumiang Cave, and the Balaganang Cave have been reopened to tourists for trekking. The town has allowed 2 bus lines to transport tourists and locals from Baguio City. Tourists are required to register online via QR code, which will be presented at the border checkpoint upon entering the Sagada-Dantay Road. Other popular attractions in Sagada include its waterfalls and hanging coffins. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. assures government workers as partners in governance and would work with them for the benefit of the Filipinos. Vice President Sara Duterte opens more satellite offices in the provinces to ensure that basic social services will reach even those who are living in remote areas. The Department of Education is hoping that more farm schools will be put up in a bid to help in boosting the agriculture sector in the country. And communist terrorist groups in northern Mindanao have decreased with the help of the government's whole-of-nation approach against insurgency. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on PTV4. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.